Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. For most of you, you've seen me way too much this month because of all the daily vlogs and all the extra videos I've had out this month, but welcome to my July reading wrap-up. So for July, I participated in 3 different readathons, and one of them I literally hated almost every single thing that I've read. If you haven't seen my Reading Rush vlogs, you should definitely check those out. I will try and have them linked down below. I just picked like the worst books to read for that. So unfortunately, I think that this wrap up is not going to be the best one. You probably won't get a lot of recommendations off of this wrap up, but it's fine, everybody. So if you didn't see, I've been doing plan with me's for my reading journal. And so I was able to use all of my July spreads, and I'm using my July wrap-up spread right now, which has been absolutely amazing. I already have everything written out for me because I kept up with it throughout the month. If you are doing reading journals and you want to see like how I do mine, I have my July plan with me, and I just did one for August. So you should definitely check that out because August is absolutely beautiful. Look at that. So we're gonna just start out with my wrap up. I read a total of 12 books. One of them was a short story, so it's fine. But I also read half of a book that I didn't count. So I read 12 and a half books. That equaled out to 3,678 pages, which is pretty great. I had 3 5 stars, 1 4 star, 2 3 stars, 3 2 stars, 2 1 stars, and the 1 DNF. So that was, I almost want to cry from that. Of those books, 6 of them came from my library because I'm a big library user. 1 of them came from Scribd. 2 of them were books that I won from a giveaway or were gifted. 1 of them was a NetGalley read. 2 of them were audiobooks. 3 of them were ebooks, and 8 of them were physical books. So you can tell I'm a big physical book person, I'm a big library book person, and apparently this month I was a big 2-star person. Of those books, the genres that I read, 1 of them was a short story horror book, 2 of them were romance, 5 of them were thrillers because that's my favorite genre, 1 of them was historical fiction, 2 of them were nonfiction, 1 of them was a young adult, and I actually forgot I bought 1 of them, like of the books that I had gotten from like the library script. 1 of them I bought, which was Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. I'm gonna go back to the beginning of July, and the first book that I read for July was The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. This is a short story. It's only 64 pages. I got my copy at the library, and I am so glad I decided to read that as the first book for July because it was absolutely amazing. I loved it so much. It was a type of paranormal horror story, and I can't really tell you what it was about because it literally was only 60 pages long, and so there's nothing to give away anything without spoiling it. But if you like any type of thriller or horror or short story or easy read, this is the one for you to pick out. I loved it. I rated it 5 stars. It was absolutely fantastic, and I think a lot more people should actually read this book because it's a great one. The next book that I read was not really one that I chose by myself. We do this like boozing and reading book type of event in my book club, and the book that got picked was called His Banana, and this was by Penelope Bloom. This was, I actually listened to it on audiobook. I think this is the one on Scribd, and it was just a funny romance, like humor type of book. Super crazy. Not anything that I loved. It was like a 3 star. It wasn't like too bad. It had a bunch of like banana innuendos in it. It was just crazy. So I don't know. It's not like something that I would totally recommend, but if you ever needed like just a humor book or just like a really light-hearted read, then you'd probably actually just, you know, be able to read it very easily. The next book that I read was Lock Every Door by Riley Sager, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you have been waiting for me to talk about this because I only gave this book 3 stars. This is a book that has been on my most anticipated reads list for forever. I love Riley Sager. I rated his 2 other books 5 stars, and they have been some of my favorite books of all time. He's like an auto-buy author for me. And I was just really, really disappointed in reading this book. To me, a lot of people like this book because it's very atmospheric and they think it's very spooky and they love the whole Bartholomew Hotel type of thing. I did not like that. I am more of a fast-paced thriller person. I didn't connect with any of the characters, and so to me, it was just a very boring thriller. I found myself not wanting to pick it up like after reading parts of it, and it took me like a week to get through. Now, this book is about this hotel apartment building thing, and a lot of like rich, popular people live there, but you're not allowed to really know who lives there. And what they do is they hire these people to apartment sit for some of the rooms that are in this building, and they pay you like a huge amount of money. It's like $12,000 to live there. Like you literally get paid to live there and apartment sit for like, I think it's like 2 or 3 months. And so, you know, why would you not want to do that? I would totally do that. Like, I would love that. The problem is that this girl that does take this job realizes that some people are going missing in this building, and so she's trying to like figure it out. The problem with this is I guess I just had too high expectations. I thought it was gonna have some type of like paranormal element, I guess, which it didn't. It's just a regular thriller book. But I guessed like the ending really far in advance. It was super easy to guess, and I am not that type of person that like can really guess things very easily. So that was a little disappointing because I thought there was going to be an extra twist to kind of like throw me off, but it didn't end up being that way. The next book that I read was The Good Girl's Guide to Great Sex by Sheila Ray Gregory. I'm not sure if that's how you say it. This book is a book that I read for my Bible study group. It's an actual book that talks about how Christians view sex, because a lot of us view sex as being like dirty. It also appeals for people that aren't even married yet, or like people that are about to be married, and so don't think that you can't read it if you've never been married before. And I really actually enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. It made me think of so many things that I didn't think about, because a lot of Christians don't want to talk about sex. They do think it's taboo, and it's really not. And I just really enjoyed the perspective of the author, and she taught me just some things about how to view it differently instead of the way that the rest of the world will actually like view it. And it was just a lot of things that I feel like with me being homeschooled, like things weren't talked about growing up. And so I would actually have like my own daughters read this if they were old enough or engaged or something like that. I just thought it was really informative and I really liked it. All right, those were the books that I read that didn't pertain to a readathon. The first readathon that I did was in my book club. It's called Binge Your Favorite Author Readathon. And this I actually only finished 1 book for. I read Too Late by Colleen Hoover. It was absolutely amazing. I think my expectations were a little low because everyone has told me that that book just isn't her best like work, and it was a lot darker. I loved it so much. I loved how dark it was. I loved how like it was written. It was absolutely amazing, and I do highly recommend, as long as you are okay with reading things about rape and abuse and those types of things, because I know it could be a trigger for some people, but I absolutely love it. There's not really much to say about it, just because part of reading it is, it almost feels like a thriller to me. Like, I actually think it's more of a thriller than Verity, and there's a bunch of twists in it that I didn't see coming, and I loved every second of it. The next readathon I did was the 24 and 48 hour readathon, and I ended up reading 6.5 hours for that readathon, and I read 2 books. I read The Pines by Blake Crouch, and I gave this 4 stars. This really was a paranormal. I've read a bunch of other books by Blake Crouch. I loved Dark Matter. Recursion was okay, and this one was actually pretty good. It had some thrilling parts, but it also had some boring parts, but it's about this guy who is like an investigator, I'm pretty sure, and he wakes up in this place in Idaho, I believe. I think it's called Wayward Pines, Idaho, and he is trying to find these like 2 other like FBI agents who have like become missing in this town. So like his like mission was to like go to this town and like find them. But he wakes up and he realizes that everyone's acting really weird in this town, and he can't leave. Like, literally, there's electric fences around this whole entire town, and everyone's like trying to kill you if you try and leave. It's really bizarre and weird, but it was actually really good. So if you like those weird, open-ended, like slightly paranormal books, then this one's for you. The next book I read was Girl Stop Apologizing by Rachel Hollis. I did not like this book at all. I gave it 1 star. I read her first book, which was Girl Wash Your Face, and that one I actually really loved. I think I ended up giving it 5 stars. This one was just literally her talking about how she's just like normal people, but then she would go on and say about how she had a boob job, how she pays someone to clean her house. And so she acted the whole time like she could relate to everybody. But in reality, I feel like her lifestyle was just way above everyone else's. And I really did not like just the points that she was trying to make in her book. I felt like I didn't relate to anything she was saying. The next readathon I did was the Reading Rush readathon, which was literally last week. And I read 5 books for that, plus a half of a book. The first book that I read was Jane Doe by Victoria Helen Stone. I gave this book 2 stars. I really did not like it. It was pretty offensive, I feel like, for Christians. A lot of people said that I might have looked into it too much, but I thought it was a pretty boring thriller, and I don't know, it's just really hard to explain. If you really want to hear like my full thoughts on that, you can watch one of my Reading Rush videos. The whole playlist is down below, and I believe I finished it like the first or the second day. But I just have a lot of thoughts about it, and I don't want to re-say everything here. So if you want to like hear why I didn't like it, you can head on over there. Otherwise, just don't read it. The next book that I read was The Lost by Natasha Preston. I gave this book 5 stars. It was absolutely amazing, and I couldn't believe it because it's a YA thriller. So this book it's like a game where these 2 girls get into the car of like these I think they're still like school students, but they're just older. They're like 18 or 19, and the girls are like 17. And they're like, oh, come hang out at our like cool hangout place because you have crushes on us, okay? So they go and do that. They get to this like barn or building that they had like fixed up and remodeled, and they were like, oh look, this is our pool table, and like, you know, all this stuff is like a cool hangout place. And they were like, oh, put your phone down because, you know, we want you to hang out with us, and, you know, social media, everyone's just on it all the time. So they're like, okay, whatever. So then they go and put them in this room, and they're like, they lock them in there, and they're like, ha ha ha, welcome to our game. And there were other students that had gone missing that are actually in this building. And it is like survival, torture. Oh my gosh, like I was so excited how dark it was. I know that sounds terrible, but I was like so excited how dark this book was, especially for a YA thriller. And my heart was like pumping the whole entire time. I read it in 1 afternoon. It was absolutely amazing. It's a really easy read too, which I like. And so I can't wait to read more by Natasha Preston because that was my first read by her, and it was really good. The book that I read that I DNF'd was How Quickly She Disappears. This is a book that I received in the mail as a giveaway, and it just didn't work for me. It was like a historical fiction thriller, and I do not do historical fictions. It just wasn't for me, and so I don't really want to give it a rating or really comment on anything because it just really wasn't the type of book that I would read anyway, but other people may like it. The next book that I read or listened to was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Like I said, I listened to the audiobook. Everyone told me to listen to the audiobook. Again, I really shouldn't give this book a star rating, even though I did rate it 2 stars. I'm thinking of taking that off of Goodreads because this book was not the genre that I normally read. I do not like historical fiction, and this felt like I was listening to a documentary. It was very boring for me, and I feel like I didn't appreciate it like other people do. So I feel like it's wrong of me to actually rate this book on my feelings, whereas someone who doesn't really read thrillers could read a thriller and think it's absolutely terrible, and it's just because that's not for them. So I am thinking of going back and removing my star rating from Goodreads, so that way it doesn't bring the rating down on Goodreads, but I'm still gonna leave my review, and so that way when I do read books that are out of my comfort zone, I can just say why I didn't like that book just pertaining to myself, but not really rate the book, if you know what I mean. The next book I read was Before I Fall by Lauren Oliver, and this book I gave 1 star. Now, this is a YA book, and the reason that I rated it so low, and I am going to keep my rating on Goodreads, is because even though it's a young adult, and yes, I'm 27 years old, and I don't read young adult, nor do I like a lot of young adult books, like they have to be written really well, is because this book shouldn't even be a thing. Even if I had a teenage daughter, I would not want her to read this book because the whole book is just about teenage girls being bullies, and the one girl dies and relives the day over again like 7 times just to realize that she needs to be nice to people. I hated it. I had to do it for the book to movie adaptation for the reading rush, and so I had to watch the movie too, and oh my gosh, guys, this was torture. The book and the movie were just so repetitive. People were just mean and bullies throughout the whole thing. They just complained about their lives. I do not recommend it. I do not recommend for young adults to read it. It was an absolutely terrible book. The last book that I read was Little Lovely Things by Maureen Joyce Connolly. And this book I ended up giving 2 stars. It was a NetGalley read, and it's the book that we are discussing in my book club here in August. I did not like this because I went into it thinking that it was a thriller, even though it is kind of labeled as a thriller, and it is not. It is a very slow-paced, like women's fiction type of book or women's lit type of book. It's about this mom who is driving with her 2 kids. She stops at a gas station because she feels sick. She goes into the gas station and ends up throwing up and like passing out. When she comes back out, her daughters are missing along with her car. Now that does sound like an amazing thriller book, but you learn about all of that in the very beginning. Plus you already know who took them, like who took the girls and everything that happens behind that. So right in the beginning, there were no twists and turns because I learned everything from the beginning, and the rest of the book is just the mom learning how to live with the guilt of like leaving her girls in the car by themselves. So I just really didn't like this book because it was not a twist and turny thriller at all. It was very boring to me, and I just wouldn't recommend it, although I do know a lot of my friends who really enjoyed it, so you might just want to give it a try because it might be something that you would enjoy. That is all for my wrap up for July. I am in this weird mood. I'm kind of like mad about how many books I didn't like this month, and some people said it was because I was in a reading slump. I don't know what the problem is. I just think I picked the wrong books for me, and I think it's because I had to make books fit into certain reading challenges, and I just want to read books that I enjoy. I don't want to have to read books or put books on my TBR that fit into a specific category and have to read that just to like make those challenges. So I'm super excited for my August TBR because I got to make my Bookopoly board exactly the way I like it. I think I'm going to love so many books in August and September, so I'm super excited for my future wrap-ups. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Give it a big thumbs up if you did, and leave a comment down below letting me know which books you read in July, like some of your favorites, because I love adding more to my TBR. I will see you guys in another video. Bye everyone.